While most histories of business and economics cite the British East India Company in the 1600s as an early forerunner of the modern corporation, the reality is that such enterprises were given a charter by the monarch and were really a state-backed monopoly, on par with the post office. The true origins of the modern corporation root back no later than the 19th century, when small family-owned businesses issued stock to attract capital and investors and created the first limited liability corporations. As a result, the form is in its infancy. Consequently, it's experiencing its birth pangs and rapid periods of growth and development. Its progress is akin to that of the development of nation-states. Whereas the first tribal polities were authoritarian in nature, they were later developed into constitutional monarchies, and later still, into republics. In very many ways, we're still in the early authoritarian top-down form of corporate governance. This primitive form was highly criticized by experts in cybernetics like Stafford Beer, who advocated for a more dynamic republican system of corporate governance. Likewise, Marjorie Kelly, the author of The Divine Right of Capital, who writes, "The public corporation is a kind of inverted monarchy, with representatives of the share-owning aristocracy hiring and firing the CEO king." Business theorist Adolf Berle in 1954's The Modern Corporation and Private Property noted that one of the big innovations of the recent age is the rise of a managerial class in business. Prior to the current time period, people like Karl Marx framed the class struggle as owners versus labor. What Marx didn't foresee was that the growing complexity of corporations, due to their rapid growth in size and scope, would instigate a creation of a management class. One of the earliest drivers for this change was the rise of railroads in the late 19th century. Because coordination was important, brought on by the pressing needs to avoid collisions between trains using the same tracks, certain managerial structures evolved. It was from the railroads, incidentally, that we have the memo today, as well as the classical middle management structure. As ownership became more diffuse, with millions of people holding stock in a company rather than just one proprietor, the guiding intelligence of corporations came from the new managerial class. This was a viewpoint developed more fully by James Burnham's book, The Managerial Revolution. In it, he talked about the increasing separation of ownership and control. In addition, economist Alfred Chandler said of the 1930s, the American economy was now dominated by the visible hand of managerial capital. So now the dynamics were not binary, but tripartite. You had not just an owner class and labor, but a new managerial class whose ascendant power provided the occasion for increased dynamism and turbulence. This structure, as discussed previously, faintly resembles the old taxonomy of governments offered up by Plato thousands of years ago, namely that there were three basic types: monarchy, aristocracy, and republic. Both Aristotle and Cicero suggested that to maintain the good aspects of all three and to temper the bad effects of decay, a mixed form of government might be best. The Roman Republic adopted this strategy, as did the United States. Just to reiterate, in the US, the Founding Fathers created a president who represented monarchy. They established a Senate, which stood in for aristocracy, and they made a House of Representatives, which served the purpose of republic. Each of these branches of government balanced the interests of a different demographic within the society. John Stuart Mill, in Considerations on Representative Government, said that it was necessary to give representation to the average people to avoid a revolution. In his own country of England, that meant creating a House of Commons. But to Mill, this was really only an expedient, with the real power lying in the House of Lords and the monarch. The framers of the U.S. Constitution saw it in similar terms, with the House of Representatives giving some voice to the multitude, but with the real power residing in the Senate and the presidency. Why all this is mentioned is that the modern corporation, first starting out as a sort of de facto monarchy, and then evolving into an aristocracy with a new shareholder class holding sway, had calls to transmogrify itself into a horizontal republican system, giving more power to labor. Of course, labor has been having a hard time getting its foot in the door. Over the last 30 years, it's seen its share of power diminish as the unions collapsed. In our next unit, we'll explore why changing global demographics may give more power back to the workers, and why that development may correct some of the imbalances we've been seeing in the modern era. When the news leaves a bad taste in your mouth, luckily, there's the Daniel Natal Pez dispenser. It gives out only red pills, as does the New American Magazine. Get your subscription today.